Okay, so it's good to be back. This is the second session that I've done. The first session, as Jane says, is available for you to see again. And the first session really talked about what NIHR is as a funder and how we support the whole of the life sciences ecosystem. So our broader offering to support health and tech innovations for health and social care. So this session is really just around the non-dilutive funding. So it's the most similar to the types of things of thinking that you are trying to do with VCs or with SMEs. And I'm specifically going to talk about our MedTech program because that's the one where we directly engage with SMEs. So it's the most similar in the way that you might think about engaging. So importantly, you will remember that NIHR is a virtual organisation. So research program funding is managed by NIHR, and so I'm employed by a private company to perform functions for NIHR, but they're Department of Health and Social Care R&D contract terms, which means as it's government public funding, subsidy rules apply. And the way that the department manages these compared to Innovate UK is we're able to offer 100% uncapped funding for SMEs, but there is a consent to commercialise clause within the R&D contract. So that's something that to bear in mind, and I'm happy to talk about that in questions towards the end. What it does mean is we have to ensure that intellectual property is assigned, the foreground and the background IP has to be assigned, and a collaboration agreement in place once an award has been contracted. I don't think there's that there may be one or two exceptions of that, and that's largely because of the financial risk. I don't think we're going to get time to talk about that today. The department reserves the right to take ownership of IP. For instance, if a company fails, if they think that the IP is going to be substantial to deliver patient benefit in the UK. Now, I think other funders have this too, but it's a bit more explicit for the Department of Health and Social Care. All contracts are actively monitored for 5 years post-completion, and we have a tiered sort of management approach about that really tries to address the risk and the potential opportunities moving forwards. And any revenue from licensing goes back to the department for research purposes. I don't ask in detail about how that's done because it's a bit messy. So I'm going to talk about our Invention for Innovation program, which is our translational research program for MedTech. Now, we're not the only one in this space, and this is a slide that I showed previously. We are the only one, however, in this space that can offer a funding award that goes from TRL 4, so Technology Readiness Level 4, so you have to have proof of concept to apply to us, all the way through to sort of implementation of the real-world evaluation type activity within either NHS or social care. And the programme itself has 3 streams. It has Product Development Award, which spans TRL 4 to 10, and Connect, which is you have to be an SME to lead, and that's a smaller type of programme, and FAST. And I'm going to talk about those in a little bit more detail next. We also have the EME programme, which is co-funded with the Medical Research Council, and the Health Technology Assessment Programme, which is the one that NICE are very interested in order to develop the evidence base, looking at the intervention or the role that technologies can have alongside current gold standard within NHS care. So it's that comparison programme. So we also fund activity that's tech related in those programmes. So what do we cover? We cover medical devices, in vitro diagnostics, and Tier C digital health and artificial intelligence. By Tier C, we mean the digital evidence standards framework that NICE have. So we don't fund digital devices that don't have a direct measuring capacity that has to feed into the system. So we don't fund standalone apps, for instance. We also don't fund Me Too type applications or incremental development of existing products. It's our dedicated MedTech funding programme, as I said, 100% funding for SMEs. You can be an academic, clinician, or SME lead for most of it. We're very proactive about our risk and impact monitoring because we recognise that this is aimed at disruptive medical technologies and they pose a higher risk. When we do our assessment at the panel meetings, we have a very strong commercial focus because the idea is that this is a way of looking at developing commercial vehicles. And we have a very strong due diligence process throughout the entire assessment and monitoring of an ongoing project. And we offer exposure to the early stage investor community. And we regularly talk to investors. So if you apply for a product development award, this is the flagship one. This is the scheme or the stream that has been known longest. It's for collaborative projects between 24, minimum of 24 and a maximum of 36 months. And they can be led by an SME, NHS or an academic. But as I say, they have to be collaborative and you have to have a collaboration agreement in place once a contract has been awarded. The overall process for commissioning takes about 7 months, slightly longer if the department is slow to ratify the decision that's been made by a committee. 2-stage process. If you're unsuccessful, you'll get some feedback at the first stage. And if you go on to the second stage, you have the opportunity for full peer review. The step up between stage 1 and stage 2 in the amount of information we request is very big. So by the time you get to stage 2, we're talking about full costings and needing to understand whether you need to have excess treatment costs included, etc. Once the committee has made a decision, it goes to the department to ratify that decision. And we have a nominal funding budget. You know, the programme has an envelope of X amount per year. And so when the committee makes decisions, they're ranked according to score, and then there's sort of a cut-off line. Sometimes the department might shift 1 or 2 around, but it's very, very rare that they do that. But they will only obviously contract up to the budget, and then we move to contracting, which we also manage on behalf of the Department of Health and Social Care. Connect is another work stream, and this is only for SMEs. So an SME can lead it. They can be collaborative projects, but the SME has to lead. Because of the higher risk associated with SMEs, by and large, we have a smaller upper funding limit. So the product development award is uncapped, but for Connect, it's £150,000, and they're shorter projects between 6 and 12 months. And they really aim to help your SME get to the next stage of development. It's an interesting program, or an interesting stream rather, because although it's 2-stage, the second stage is actually about presenting your 3-minute video pitch to the committee. So it's where we start to treat your SMEs or your companies and your product in a way that they would need to understand further on in terms of engaging with VCs or engaging with a broader system, and that much more commercial approach. Along with the video pitch is a business plan, and I've got another slide on that. There's no real surprises there about the kinds of things that we're interested in seeing. Again, the committee makes a decision based on what they've seen, and then it goes forward to the department to ratify. And the whole process is about 4 months. So it's quicker. It's aimed at trying to support companies, because obviously if you're an SME, you have a cash flow issue that you need to maintain. That's much more obvious than it would be if you were in an NHS trust or an academic institution. So the application form that goes along with the video pitch has to cover really the kinds of things you would expect in a business plan in a way. You know, what is your technology overview? Where do you see the business opportunities, and what is the objective of what you want to do with the money? What does the market and the competition look like? An outline of your sales and marketing plan. What is your operating plan, your research plan, your management team, etc. And we're not expecting, depending on where you come in, because obviously this covers TRL 4 to TRL 10, there's a different flavour of that as you move through higher up the translational readiness level scale. And I will touch on that in another slide later on. And then finally, we have our FAST scheme, which is really popular. And we have 1 to 2 calls a year. And it's called Funding at the Speed of Translation. And it's an open rolling type call with no submission deadline. The department says, right, we've got this amount of money. We want you to open a call now. We open a call. Applications come in. Once that funding is committed, then the call closes because there's no more funding available. And it's specifically to look at a single activity or filling a very specific evidence gap. It's the most light touch. There's just 3 questions, and you really have to say, what do you want the money for? Why do you need it? And what is it building on? You know, you still have to place it within the context of your commercial plan. Applications are between 15 and 50k, so it's the lowest financial risk, which is the reason why we can manage it more as a rolling call. We wouldn't be able to do this otherwise. This year, it's become themed. So the current theme will be traumatic brain injury. And I think the call opens next week for this particular one, this particular scheme. And this is an example of the kinds of activities that we support through the program. So under the Product Development Award, anything in darker blue probably goes from TRL 4 to TRL 7. So up to supporting anything that you would need to do to get your regulatory dossier together to go to MHRA. So it could include software module design, first in human safety studies, prototyping and manufacturing, your commercial strategy and your IP protection. Obviously, we need PPI and end user engagement because that's a requirement for us. The health economic analysis, which is required for all of our projects, and whether you need to do clinical utility studies. If you've already got a CE mark and you're looking to apply to the program for that real world evaluation where you're testing it within an NHS or a care environment, then the kinds of things that we see people asking for are slightly different, obviously. So they're looking at design and delivery of evaluations within that healthcare setting, and looking at implementation research costs. So this is training of staff to deliver the implementation within that setting, which is not something that would come in under earlier on in product development. And looking at the cost of collection of effectiveness data, which you then need to submit to NICE. And obviously the business case development for adoption is very different to the business case development that you would have earlier on in your product development. And the same kinds of studies or the same kind of things that you might want to do, sorry, I've lost my words today, you can also do under the Connect scheme. And you could do pieces of these under FAST, but obviously FAST isn't a big enough scheme to be able to support a huge amount of activity. But we have seen people approach us for FAST to do, say, a commercial strategy or specific PPI type activity if they are a company and don't have access to the normal routes to do this. So I'm going to talk broadly about what we look for, because they're the same kinds of things that you would probably look for and you would want to, if you're working with companies, some of the things that you would want to consider in your management of them. All funders, we're all looking for clear objectives. We're all looking for realistic milestones. We're all looking for risk mitigation, but we have probably a bit of an enhanced emphasis on this within this particular program. And we're looking for team expertise, whether that team is directly employed by the company or whether it is, subcontracted in. More specific for NIHR, we have a requirement for public and patient involvement, and all of our products are innovative. So we're looking at engagement that is level, is at an appropriate level for that innovation. So if you have, say, a software piece, software as a service, maybe you're looking at the type of PPIE that you would want for that is different to things that would be later on in the product development, for instance. So it has to be in line with what you would normally expect to see. And it could include a public consultation. It could include patient recruitment. We'd want to know where you're recruiting your patients from. And obviously we have a diversity and inclusion role in the same way that other funders do and you yourselves will do. Because we're looking at patient benefit as a funder, you have to be very good at explaining your clinical need. And this is probably a key reason why a lot of SMEs are not successful the first time round in the program, because they haven't got a clinician to write this piece. We obviously want to know about your health economics case, which will be different depending on where you are within the pathway. You need to understand your system impact. So this is why we say, why don't you talk to our health tech research centres, because they can help you understand the patient journey and how disruptive this may be, which can help point you in the right direction for looking at the boundaries of your health economics. And you have to be able to explain obviously what the patient benefit will be for an individual patient. We're also looking for, because we're looking for disruptive technologies, we want you to be able to explain why is your technology innovative, which, believe it or not, is sometimes quite hard for people to do. And what is your market disruption going to be? What are you building your current technology development on? And what is your IP ownership and governance? And obviously we'll need that in terms of the collaboration agreement anyway, and the clear boundaries between foreground and background IP and who's going to take things forward. We want a reasonably thorough market analysis if you're at, well, we need a detailed market analysis if you're higher up the TRL scale, but if you're lower down the TRL scale, you can sometimes get away with using broad figures on a national kind of level. If you're looking at NHS adoption, for instance, you might look at total population affected. But if you're looking at the real world evaluation type piece, you'll be looking at a much more regional level and the system drivers within that local area. We're very interested in how you're going to get on with investment. So we see companies getting their clinical evaluation together and then going on perhaps to develop sales first in the US. It used to be Germany, but of course now because of Brexit and because of the current regulation issue around IVDs and MDR, we're seeing a bit of a swap towards FDA approval. But then we would expect you to either get VC funding or potentially come back to the UK. We don't generally want to use public funding to develop products that leave the country. We do want to see them come back to the UK, but recognise that in order to maintain your cash flow, you would need to potentially make sales somewhere else. We want to see what your adoption strategy is. And that then touches back on what is the patient pathway and how disruptive is it? And obviously we're a public funder, so value for money. I said that we are proactive in our risk mitigation. It starts all the way at the beginning with contracting. And there we will look at, so financial scrutiny is interesting because if you are looking at a collaborative project with an SME, but we don't think the SME is capable of actually managing a large collaborative project, we will ask them to contract with either the academic partner or the trust partner in preference because they're used to handling that type of award. Once a project is going, we have the ongoing monitoring. So we do site visits, milestone-based payments, which you'll be aware of, obviously progress reporting, which you're aware of. We insist in the collaboration agreement that there's a research steering group and an IP management group because we have to manage that consent to commercialise clause as we go forward. And then impact, we regularly do post-award catch-ups. So I've put this slide in because I thought it might be of interest. Because the programme does allow SMEs to lead, so this is who leads, you can see that it is actually very popular with SMEs, and it took some time to build this up and actually raise awareness across the community. Trusts, NHS trusts don't lead as much as universities or SMEs for this particular programme, but for other programmes within the portfolio, it differs. And don't ask me what other is because it could be a charity, but it's a very broad definition of what would fall under other. So since NIHR funding began, which wasn't in 2006 when the programme, when NIHR was initially formed, it was a little bit after, I think it's about 2008. We've had almost 2,500 applications, 360 contracts, and we've awarded 270 million. And then on the right, I've got the thing on my screen. In terms of FAST, because FAST is the newest program, it's only been going, or newest stream, it's only been going for 2 years, off and on, because it's this rolling open and then closed. We've had 500 applications assessed and 148 contracts awarded, and roughly 7 million say. When you look at SMEs, so this is the percentage of SMEs that have won an award, they've received 64 million of that 260 or 270 million. So it's a significant chunk. And in terms of FAST, it's a very popular scheme with them. We've had, of those 156 contracts, 100 have been awarded directly with an SME. And then when you look at the overall programme performance, these are the key things that we collect, that we talk to and report about in our annual reporting, etc. So we're very interested in the number of collaborations because we've got a collaboration agreement that's part of the contract, but also it's where do these collaborations sit in the health and care system and where are they distributed about the UK. Average number of jobs created is 4.8, which is quite good. We've had 2 IPOs and 1 acquisition, and we've had 115 projects achieve their CE marking. And obviously nobody's achieving a CE marking right now. It's somewhere between a UKCA, FDA, so that will change a little bit moving forwards. But of interest, of that 269 million that we've invested in the programme directly, or the government's invested, a further 912 million has been leveraged through private investment. And we update these figures quarterly, and they're due an update now, so they will change soon, hopefully. and 28 million has been further leveraged through other public funding. So the program overall is really useful as a vehicle to then go to ask VCs to support moving forward. This is just a couple of highlights, and the real purpose of this is to show you that whether you're looking at a digital intervention or a physical intervention, what we want to see is that people understand the broader ecosystem offering. So you could start with, say, a small, and we want to keep you within the system. So you might have originally been awarded a product development award and then got on and got to Connect, which is the smaller one, or you've used part of our infrastructure. So you might have been working with one of the health tech research centres, or they've gone on to get NICE approval. So it's a really useful program to develop products in this space. And of course, we cover the whole of the TRL scale, unlike, say, SBRI Healthcare, which is in pieces.